today we're talking about water content in soaps. Okay, this started with, I really wanted to make some more soap dough, and as I'd mentioned in the previous soap dough videos, I'm not really a soap dough gal. So I made some soap dough and then it was sticky. Aha, water content. So what's up with the water content in soap dough? And I didn't find any really good answers, so I'm just going to do an experiment myself, just make a couple batches. I also got thinking, you know what? A lot of the questions that I'm answering from some of my soapy friends all have to do with water content. Why is my soap cracking? Why is it taking so long to get out of the mold? Why did it seize up? Why are my colors too different, like consistencies? What's up with the soda ash? All sorts of things that are really troubling a lot of soap makers, and it all boils down to water content. So, if you have taken the Ultimate Natural Soap Making course, you already know that the minimum amount of water you need is 1 part water to 1 part sodium hydroxide. So equal parts water to NaOH is the minimum amount of water you need. And that is because you can't dissolve your sodium hydroxide with less water than that. Simple as that. I love my 1-to-1 sodium hydroxide ratio, and you see me using it all the time, especially on my go-to vegan palm-free recipe. That is because I can unmold that soap like 4 to 6-ish hours, and that ish and kind of range there depends on how thick of a trace I brought it to and the humidity and temperature of the room. Whether I gelled it, not gelled it, a couple other factors. Why on earth would I ever want to use more water? Because I'm doing something special. Maybe I'm adding something to my formulation, such as pumpkin or any other fruit or juice purees or milks or anything. All of those things contain water. I think pumpkin is like 80 to 90% water. So it's like milk, I think. I mean, I've got it all written down, and you can Google what's the water content of pumpkin puree, or what's the water content of goat's milk, or whatever it is you're using. And that'll let you know how much additional water you're adding. Now, you can add as much water as you want. When you add too much water, your soap's going to be really soft and squishy and goopy and take forever to get out of the mold. And you could, make it so that there's no way all that water is ever really going to evaporate without years and years and years of cure time. Soap calculators, they default to about 25% sodium hydroxide and 75% water. But that's for hot process, because hot process, you need more water because water evaporates. Let's look at some soaps, or let's just make some soap with water. This is the little experiment that I've got set up for us. We're going to do a 1-to-1, and then we're going to add more water, and I've got it already set up here. This is going to be, and look, it's written on it, 1.5. So this soap will be an equivalent of 1.5 to 1 water to sodium hydroxide. This one here is going to be 2 parts water to 1 part sodium hydroxide. So literally the only difference between these is going to be water content equal to sodium hydroxide, so my 1-to-1 lye solution, which I've pre-made. Then we're going to split this off to one container that has, I think there's 7 extra grams of water in there, and this one has 14 grams extra water in there, because that is, just based on the sodium hydroxide. So water, always based on sodium hydroxide. The amount of sodium hydroxide you need is based on the saponification value of your oils. And like I said, my go-to is 1-to-1. That's where I always start. When I learned to reduce the amount of water in my formulations, let me tell you, a whole world of awesomeness opened up. I had so much more control of my trace, and I think we're going to see some of that here today too, where the more water I add, the faster things would trace, because the more water you add, the faster things heat up. And trace is all about saponification, which is an exothermic reaction, meaning heat. And all that water evaporation makes lots of heat happen. So I've got coconut oil, olive oil, sunflower seed oil, mango, and some cocoa butter in here. And I'm just bringing this to an emulsion. And I'm pretty sure we've got one. I'm waiting to see if the batter starts to separate, and it does not look like it is. Once we pour all these off, we are going to pour some into our little molds here, and then the rest we're going to pour into soap dough, so kind of 2 for 1. Now I'm wondering if I'm waiting for another moment just to make sure this doesn't start to separate. I started to see a couple of little like separation kind of oil drizzles on the top of this, because you see I'm really loose here, really super loose here. So I'm just going to wait a minute, make sure this gets taste, because one of the things I'm hoping to show you is I think our 2-to-1 bar, when we pour that off, that's going to have quite a bit of soda ash on it. All right, so this, here, I'll hold this up so you can see what I was looking at. See, it's not separating. And I think that would have separated out by now. And you would have seen like obvious separation on that. Okay, so I think it was just the light that was coming down to me. All right, so I already did my math. Over here I've got my little book with all my fun math in it. But let's go ahead and pour these off. There is a tutorial if you need help with the math for splitting batches, but this all comes down to I need to pour 127 grams off for each one. So this is my 1.5 to 1 water content, and we're achieving that again just by adding extra water, which I already added. And this one will have a total water content of 2 to 1 water to sodium hydroxide. And I thought I wasn't going to need a container for the 1-to-1, but I do want one of my smaller beakers because I am going to stick blend this a little bit more. And I don't want to introduce air bubbles because I don't want that to affect the final visual of the soaps when we look at them together. So 1-to-1, 1.5 to 1, 2 to 1. 1, 1.5, 2. First thing we're going to do, let's just stir these little guys up. And our 1-to-1 didn't really need any stirring. It's just the base, right? Okay, 1.5 to 1, mixing that extra water content in there. And you should look at the color difference. The only change is the water. And here's our 2-to-1. If you have ever played with the ghost swirl, which we've done a few times, the ghost swirl uses the same concept as well. Same oils, same ingredients, right? Only difference is the water content. These two, and look at the color difference on those two even. The higher water content looks lighter. By the time these are set up and they go through a gel, the higher water content is actually going to be darker. And these are already changing in consistency. See how thin that is? It's like barely considered a trace. Versus this one, and remember, all I did was stir this. Look how much thicker this one is. Okay, there you go. Water content and trace. Yay. This is a fun little demo. This one is almost at a trace. It's thicker than our 1-to-1, but our 1.5 to 1 isn't quite as thick as our 2-to-1. I mean, that's completely counterintuitive, right? You'd think adding more water is going to water something down and make it thinner. That's not the truth. These are also, let's do a temperature check on them too. This one is 97. Well, I mean, it's bopping around to, 96. Okay, let me just try and get them right down the center. Wait, 98, right down the center. 108, 7. 110. Let me check this one again. Yep, 107. 110. Oh, that one's getting up to 99. So, oh, that one got up to 112 there. See, they're heating up. Oh, 114. They're heating up because the ponification is happening. So it's making things heat up. That's why if you just leave your soap to set, it will thicken up on you. Heat's happening. And the more water you have, the more, the quicker that heat generates. Okay, let me see if I can get the air bubbles out of this. I want to thicken this one up a bit because I'd like to pour at a relatively similar trace on each one. That was really hard to burp. I love these little beakers because the stick blender fits in them just so perfectly. I mean, this is essentially 100-gram batches of soap. But I can get my blender all the way submerged in there. Let's check the trace on this one. Okay. Oh, that looks better. It didn't really lighten up. Versus, see, look at the colors. Really trying to make sure there's not too much like shadow play going on here for you. This one is obviously, oh, look at that. This is like a runny pudding now. I haven't done anything to it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch up on the trace on that. Still super fluid. So if you're having problems with swirls, one thing you can do is reduce your water content. I mean, I just think I'd have to blend this for quite a while. I mean, we're definitely at a light trace. I'm going to say this is light verging on medium. Okay, I think we're going to have to pour. I mean, I could. Okay, you know what? All right, I'm going to do it. I do want to pour at similar traces. We're going to try and blend this one a little more. And again, this is all discussed in the Ultimate Natural Soap Making course. Even if you know how to make soap, I really recommend you go and check it out. It's part of membership too, and the base membership is $7. I just really try and cover all like these basics that most soap makers are never taught, especially if you are someone like me who, you know, you kind of learn from doing. Oh, that's so much better. But gosh, I'm going to say like the first 5 years of my soap making life was just like throwing things together without really knowing what the heck I was doing. Okay, let's pour these out. So anyway, as I was saying, that class talks about water content and the fatty acids and all kind of that important part of soap that we don't really get told about. Most courses say, here's your oils, this is what oil is, here's some sodium hydroxide, here's a recipe, here's safety, super important. Now go about your life making soap. But there really is a lot more to it than that. Oh, this is so cool. Now you need to remember it's going from dark to light, with the lighter one being the one with the most water. That's what happens when our soap is wet. Look how thick that trace is. Did not do extra stick blending here. Lots of extra stick blending here. Still super runny, almost too thick to like get a flat top on that. I'd have to tamp that down. Okay, I forgot what I was saying before that, but, oh, the colors. When these set up, and once they are, we pop them out of the mold, which I will at least record and add to the replay of this, that's going to be the darker one. Because I think I'm going to gel them. No, I'm not going to gel them. That will be darker, and we'll see it because we'll cut it open, because this one will also have soda ash on it, and that one won't. That will be like a nice creamy ivory color, kind of that color. with no soda ash, and that one's going to turn closer to what you're seeing here in this color, but it's going to have lots of soda ash on it. This one, we may or may not get soda ash on it. All right, so now for the soap dough, because that's my little spoiledness happening here.
I'm just going to speed up through this. I'm just pouring the leftovers into some baggies to make some soap dough, and we'll play around with those in some of the members' classes in the upcoming weeks.
Now, what the only downside I have to my 1-to-1 and why you'll see me adding more water to my standard recipe if I'm doing a live stream with you all is it takes a while to get to a tray. So if I want to do any like super fun like tops with you all, you always see me, this one, it's my go-to, but I up the water content just because I want to get to trace quicker, and I don't think we all want to sit here and watch me stick blend for 10 minutes. When I'm doing like my production soaps and I use my 1-to-1, I can pop them out of the mold super easy and quickly and get them cut and on the cure rack and even wrapped like the next week. And I'm not doing super fancy designs in those soaps. So, they're super, it's production soap. Okay, those are 1.5-to-1. But when I'm here soaping with you on these live streams, I'm always like warming up my oils or adding a little extra water just to speed things along. The other times that I'm adding more water to my formulation is if I don't have any coconut oil in it and I have a really high oleic acid formulation. An example would be Castile soap. If you don't know what Castile soap, go over to the Soapy blog at soapyfriends.com and search Castile. And there's a recipe. It's a super complicated recipe. Did that look snarky? Because it was supposed to be. It's just olive oil soap. But anyway, it has a really high oleic acid content to it. And if you don't go through a gel, and if you do really low water on that sucker, let me tell you, it is hard as a rock. And it will do nothing but chip and crumble and fall apart when you try and cut it. So I always up the water content on a Castile soap. And if you get my coconut oil free recipe, you'll notice I recommend on that one the 1.5-to-1. There's a 1.8-to-1. I wrote it down. It's in the formulation for you on that. But that's why. It's so that you can cut it. Yes, you need to wait a full day, a full 24 hours before you can cut that one. But there we go. There's our soap dough. There's our 3 colors. And that's water content and soap. Pretty cool, huh? Right? So if you're having problems with trace, lower or raise your water content depending on what trace you're aiming for. If it traces too quickly, lower that water content. If it doesn't trace fast enough, add more water. If your soap is crumbling and it's high oleic, add a little more water. If you want to unmold super fast, like 4 to 5 hours, maybe 6 hours, again, depending on your super fat temps and all that stuff, 1-to-1 water is great. And another thing I love about the 1-to-1 water to sodium hydroxide or a 50% NaOH solution is that I can add any other liquid additives just as an additive. When I make milk soaps, I don't add sodium hydroxide to the milk. I add the milk as an additive. When I'm doing purees, when I'm doing, teas, I probably would, if it was like a tea and that's all I was doing, I'd probably use the tea water for my water and do a little bit higher, maybe 1.5-to-1. But purees, fruits, veggies, all that other stuff, you can just add it as extra. And by knowing the amount of sodium hydroxide you have as a constant and using that water content to create ratios for all those additives, talk about easy thinking. If I know I want to add pumpkin puree, let's just say, I like the bananas because their banana soap was great. And I go and I have a 1-to-1. I know I can up my water content to 1.5 by adding half of the weight of the water as banana or pumpkin or whatever. See, math can be so much soapy fun. All right, these are our soaps. Remember, this was the lightest one visually yesterday. Now these two are the same color. This one still looks a bit darker with the lowest water amount, but these are not cured. We just did these yesterday. So a couple things I want to show you. One, let's just label them first. So this one's 1-to-1. And this will, one, allow us to remember and identify our soaps. Okay, but I also want you to see, look how hard these bars are, okay? See all that flaking? All right, let's do the next one. This one's gonna get a 15, 1. Look at that, not as flaky, softer still, because water content. Now these are harder than my go-to recipe because of the extra butters in it. Got the cocoa butter, love that cocoa butter. Okay. That one, super flaky. Here, we'll put the flakes in there. So imagine if you were cutting through a loaf, okay? If I was actually going to cut through a loaf on these, I would have cut this one yesterday. This one, I could probably still get away with it. Yeah, this one I could for sure still cut nicely. All right, and then let's do the second one, or the last one rather, which is 2 parts water. It's bumpy on top. Okay, this is our 2-to-1. So we got a big fat 2, and look at that. That's so soft. It's still pliable. Okay, I should be able to recognize that as a 2 later on. See? Okay, let's go ahead and pop them out of the mold. Now, this definitely would have been a better demonstration for you all if I had used my go-to vegan palm-free recipe, because we'd get a real sticky bottom on that one. That unmolded beautifully, nice and firm. Let's do the 1.5-to-1. Got a bit of a dent unmolding it, and I can rub my finger and soften the edge on this one. It's not really denting it, but I can soften the edge. Versus this one, I mean, that's rock hard already. And then finally, 2-to-1. And this one is still even softer. All right, so I'm going to let these set up for, I don't know, a few days to a week or so. Let's put them in order for you. 1-to-1, 1.5-to-1, 3-to-1. And I'm hoping we'll get some soda ash on that one, just so I can show you the difference. I did say we were going to cut that one open. Now, I didn't get a gel on these. I didn't put heating pad down, and my room temp is very, very, very cool right now. Oh, we got a nice little Persil gel in there. Let's go ahead and just chop them all open. Did not go through. I mean, this is a hint of a Persil gel in there, but just barely. Guess we're chopping them all open. Absolutely no gel on that one. And remember, the only difference, water content. All right, I will do a little update on these with soda ash as it comes out. So that'll probably be, I don't know, a couple weeks.
Here's a quick overview of the soaps from left to right. We have 1-to-1, water to lye, then 1.5-to-1, and then our 2-to-1. And as you can see, the 1-to-1 looks a bit crumbly. It was harder to cut. The 1.5, we started to see some gel, and you really do see that gel on the 2-to-1, all because of water content. And in a few weeks, maybe even a day or so, we will start to notice soda ash developing on the higher water content, where the 1-to-1 will not have any soda ash on it. There's more information about soda ash over on the Soapy blog at soapyfriends.com too as well, and I'll put a bunch of links down below in the description of this video for you.
So, all right, there you go, my soapy friends. Thanks for playing with water content with me. And if you'd like to explore more fascinating soapy basics, go ahead and check out the Ultimate Natural Soap Making course over at soapyfriends.com. Until next time, happy soaping.